Well, I guess it starts with a vision, and it's like everything we do starts with one, the consumer, and two, having the right vision. And if we have that from the top down, that everyone's aligned on what the vision is, and that the work always has to live up to that vision, then it very much just permeates the whole culture of the agency. So our whole culture is based on trying to create work experiences that, I guess you're never going to be truly accountable in some ways. Can you measure the positive impact on the world or something like that? But you can actually still evaluate the work based on that vision, creating that empower people, trying to create some change and helping people's lives to some degree. So it's just having taste and a filter internally. That's a good question. I guess the reason I talk about Nike so much is I worked with them for 8 years, and to those guys, it's a real collaborative kind of relationship. You can't. It's definitely not agency, client, phone call, brief, and go and do your work. It's so collaborative. In that respect, I guess my answer to this question is we're trying to get more people to operate in that way. We're trying to get more brands. So with Nissan, for example, we're starting to really operate like that. That's very much a collaborative piece. So that relationship, and it's not just a relationship, it's a mental approach to how we work and how I guess we write the brief sometimes before the brief arrives, and that's how we kind of worked with Nike in the past, and trying to create, back to the word vision films, pieces of content that would sit internally at the client, and they'd play that for a year or two, and then that would set the kind of, I guess, the agenda for what the sort of briefs that roll out behind that are. So we're trying to do that more and more through different clients. Levi's, we're doing a lot of work with in San Fran, not myself personally, and there's a really collaborative spirit in there. And the reason we opened in Portland is so that we could be closer to Nike, for example. So that collaboration is, sometimes you're in a meeting and it feels like we're all from the same place. It doesn't feel like the relationship is like, you work for us, we pay you to do this. It's like we're all trying to make something good together. Right. So the more often we can create that kind of environment and that spirit, the better. And and I guess when I used to work on Xbox, we had a very collaborative spirit on the Xbox 360. So that would be another project where you could say the agency and the client model, the line was blurred, and we were just one team trying to create a product or service. I hope so. So at the moment, we're just working with the European clients, but for me, the vision again for that piece of work is that it becomes a brand statement globally. And I think it only actually really makes sense and becomes powerful when all the local markets pick that up.
Right.
And you raise an interesting point about that, working for a brand at a global or regional level and then working for a local level. And I guess all of our clients, we try and have that global relationship so you can really drive where the brand's going and help the core of the brand. And then when you can work with local markets, you can activate that on the ground. And Vodafone First is a good example where we're starting to have to collaborate with local market agencies and teams and the clients to enable all those stories, because we're sourcing hundreds of stories, and to do first in the world, to actually surprise people for like, wow, that's a first,
Right.
is actually a real creative challenge. It's and you're constantly coming up with ideas, and there's a good brain trust involved in that. So yeah, I think again the hope is that becomes something that all the local agencies pick up and take to the next level. Brands and businesses that have started with the right spirit, brands like Warby Parker, for example, that they started with a mission to help, to actually put something back into the community. The brands that are starting like that, their rise is fast and it's steady. They're not dropping off. So I'd say the brands that are starting out have got the ability to, do it correctly from the outset. And you can see lots of examples of that, as I talked about, the collaborative consumption, or the car networking systems where you can rent out your house, all that stuff. Those sort of businesses are, it's just the beginning of those. Big businesses will still they've still got the opportunity to reinvent themselves. And I think car companies have, they're so huge and there's so many layers. I mean, to the point where Get Around and things like this, you can actually start looking at car companies that create cars specifically to be co-owned. So you could have 20 people owning a car, or you could become I don't know, a Nissan member, and every time you get off a plane, a different country or a different city, you own a car in that city. So
Right.
you don't own one car. So there's different models that they could look at. No, I'm not going to point out companies that aren't doing well,
I know that's
because
tough.
yeah, it's tough. Yeah, but I thought the film content is very strong, so that seems to be good. But for me, I miss the work that's actually pushing forward, and I kind of left it out of my talk a little bit. I want to talk about the opportunity that New Zealand has to create not world first for the sake of it, but to actually pioneer work and ideas and thinking, because we're a little incubator community and it's small, but there's so many intelligent, passionate, creative people that I think it could be, if it plays it right in the next few years, it could be somewhere people look to for the next ideas and the big things. And at the moment, it doesn't feel like we're capitalising on that potential right now.